Hiya, everybody, and welcome in. It is time for the post-Iowa State edition of Three Guys Before the Game. For those of you that are joining us on our video side, no, Hoppy Kercheval has not grown by 2.5 feet and by 195 pounds. That's not Hoppy there, ladies and gentlemen. Look who's back on the Three Guys Before the Game podcast. Hoppy Kercheval is out today, and so what we did, and this was before the Iowa State game. I scheduled this last Thursday to have him in here, but joining us on the podcast today, the one and only Nathan Adrian, who has risen to popularity on Three Guys Before the Game during the basketball season, but he is also an ex-standout football player, and hey, everyone's got an opinion, and what a delightful way to bring Nate back into the fold. Nate, nice to have you with us here.
You guys again.
Well, I must admit that we heard, Brad and I, the Senators here as well, Brad and I heard through third channels that you were hurt, that he had not been involved in any of the summer shows. And I said, just, it's coming. The leaves are changing. You're going to be back in here for basketball, so it's good to have him back. Wouldn't you agree, Senator?
It's great to have him back.
I mean, it looks good.
Great to have him back.
Yeah, it looks good.
And he was a heck of a receiver, quarterback, multiple positions at Morgantown High. About the same size as Hakeem Butler, who just ate up West Virginia. So I think he's got a good perspective today.
A little bit shorter than Hakeem Butler, but we got a lot to get into here. Obviously, folks, after West Virginia's first loss of the season, and it was devastating, man. It was 30-14 was the final score, as you probably well know, but 30-14 in a game that wasn't even that close. So where do we start and where do we go? Well, before we look ahead, obviously, we are going to look back and put the pieces all together, and there's a bunch of different angles we can go. First, what do you say we take the historic angle? And the year 1995 is coming up here, Senator, as in, if you track it back, as far as poor offensive output goes, you'd have to go all the way back to the 95 season.
100 yards passing, 52 yards rushing. I'll be honest, I did not think that would have been possible from a West Virginia offense, this particular offense, even if West Virginia had matched up with Alabama in the college football playoff. I would not have thought those numbers possible, let alone against an Iowa State team that we'll get into. I thought just did a fantastic job, had a great game plan. We talked all last week that you may be walking into a hornet's nest. You're walking into a group with a good defense. But to see Iowa State be able to clamp down on West Virginia and West Virginia to have zero answers for them, that to me is the most stunning thing coming out of this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that is it. At times, this offense, when it clicks, has looked so explosive, and for it not to cross the 50-yard line,
shocking, in
the course of a game, just makes you kind of look at the numbers and you go, wait a second, they never got across the 50-yard line. And there's 12 drives in the game, and West Virginia has 2 5-play drives, and that's the longest drives that they had. Everything else was under 5 plays, so 10 drives went under 5 plays, and it's just absolutely head-shaking. And so the big question is, why? Why and how did it happen?
That's a good question. Those coaches over there are going to have to answer some hard questions this week, because it wasn't just simply lack of production. It was you were seeing things or not seeing things from West Virginia on Saturday that you'd seen all year. Where were the tight ends? Where was the attempt to get a tight end into the middle of the field? Where was an attempt to get a running back out of the backfield and dump to a running back? Where were the slants? The slants had been so prevalent for West Virginia. I talked to somebody that charts plays throughout the league. West Virginia averages about 8 to 10 of those a game, through 0 Saturday against Iowa State. Now, I'm sure you'll go back and look at the film and you can see that they did some things with safeties and linebackers and putting them out, but no attempt to be able to run a slant on Saturday when that's a bread and butter play for West Virginia. Just a stunning lack of adjustments throughout the game, too. I would have thought, given the cast of characters this offense has, and how often have we sat here and talked about the multiple receivers, the multiple running backs, the multiple playmakers, the fact there's all those guys and they couldn't spring anybody for any kind of momentum is again, just shocking to me.
All right. Fans' perspective. Well, former All Big 12 conference performer, but fans' perspective, he's a football fan. Basketball standout. We'll get into a little basketball before we're done as well. What was your take when you were watching it? Head
Me and
shaking?
Brad were talking exactly what he was just talking about before the podcast here. I mean, just looking in, I don't know much about football and the schemes and whatever, all that, but watching the game, they're blitzing their linebackers almost every play and playing three deep safeties. So you think at some point the middle of the field has to be open, and at no point did we even attempt to get our playmakers the ball in the open field and at least let them try to get the yards. It seemed like we were trying to do everything in the air instead of getting it into a playmaker's hands and letting them do something.
It also leads to the next series of questions as to why did Will Greer hold on to the ball for as long as he did. And I'm extremely anticipating what the answer is going to be. When you go in and go, okay, why? What was the reason that it wasn't being thrown out of bounds?
So you mean more not when he's standing in the pocket holding it, when obviously Iowa State had some good coverage, you were looking for somebody to come open, but multiple times when Greer escaped outside but held the ball rather than just chucking it out of bounds and playing another day.
Yeah,
that's what you're referring to?
Yeah, this offense is designed to either throw it quickly or to get rid of it quickly and then go play the next play. And so I'll be really interested to know, because obviously the negative yardage, the reason why West Virginia was limited to that offensive output was because there was a lot of negative yardage in that play. When you take a look at the sacks, Iowa State sacked him 7 times for 60 yards. 7 sacks for 60 yards, which is just off the chart. So the question it becomes, okay, why? What was there? What happened? And obviously, you never want to go into an off week with a loss. I think this is the best time that they need an off week, because I don't think this is one of those deals where you go like, oh, we wish we could play on Saturday. We wish Baylor was next. I don't think that's now, to be honest with you. I think the funk of this kind of a loss emotionally could have caught them again if they had to play on Saturday.
It's not a bad point.
Because this thing's going to be, it's going to be a funeral procession around there for about 3 or 4 days. And if you had to play on Saturday, you're not even getting ready again. I think they need until at least next Thursday before they get their head straight.
Well, that's a good point. And that's kind of the overall thing I walk away with from this game. It wasn't the loss. One loss, you're still alive for a lot of things. College football playoff may be out the door with one loss, but that Big 12 championship is still out there. It was the manner in which this team lost that was so eye-opening and shocking. I mean, that looked like a group that had no idea what their plan was, no idea how to execute, no idea how to, once they got hit in the mouth, no idea how to stand back up and handle that. That was just a shocking lack of execution and unpreparedness that we just haven't seen out of this group.
Yeah. Offensive line is something that they have been uncomfortable with really the whole season, in the sense of who are your guys? Who are the 5? And we're at the midpoint now, a little bit past, and you still are, because of injuries at that right guard spot, you're still trying to figure out positions. And Dana Holgerson told me the night before the game, he said, we're going to have a problem if we can't block their down 3. If we can't block their down 3, then it's going to become problematic. And then they're going to start to bring the additional guys, right? So that happened, obviously. They weren't able to block their 3. And the bigger concern of it all is that their best defensive lineman did not play. Ray Lima, who's probably an NFL guy, who's a down lineman, did not play. He was injured in the game. So I think a lot of this goes to that lack of consistency on that offensive line. Great teams, for the most part, have offensive lines that have a consistency and a characteristic of toughness that they just beat up on people. And at this point, this group has not consistently done that. And when I say consistently, think about this. So in the last 3 games, so we're just not going to use one game as an aberration, but here's the concern. In the last 3 games, West Virginia scored 0 offensive touchdowns in the second half against Texas Tech. They scored 2 offensive touchdowns and a field goal against Kansas, but the one was really late. They just kind of put one in there at the end, but that's okay. No offensive touchdowns against Iowa State in the second half. So if you take a look at second halves, right? Second halves, this team's productivity in the last 3 games has just gone down. Against Texas Tech, West Virginia averaged 8 yards per play in the first half, 4.2 in the second half. Against Kansas, West Virginia averaged 6.4 yards per play in the first half and just under 5 in the second half. Against Iowa State on Saturday, they averaged 4.1 in the first half and 2.6 in the second half. So second halves, 3 straight games, the productivity has just gone, if you want to add it up, all combined, the last 3 games in the second half, West Virginia has averaged 4.2 yards after averaging 6.9 in the first half. So instead of, okay, here's what we are, and making adjustments and getting even better, it's going down. They got to get that fixed.
And that was especially a problem Saturday because as bad as it looked, you were still in the game. It was 20 to 14 at the half. I mean,
you could have stole that. That would have been one of the police may have arrested you in the locker room because it's sitting there at 20 to 14.
Right.
And all you have to do is squeeze one out, and you can go like,
okay, we're right there.
You're there.
I know. So here's what I'll go back to, and that I can't get my mind around. You're correct in that West Virginia couldn't block Iowa State. Couldn't block them with 3. Couldn't block it when they brought 5. Number 12, Greg Eisworth, is still making tackles and making big plays for them. But here's what shocks me. Oklahoma State couldn't handle Iowa State either. They got chewed up behind the line of scrimmage, right? We talked about that stat last week. Every 5th play Oklahoma State ran against Iowa State went for a negative play. They had 16 tackles for loss. Iowa State did 7 sacks against Oklahoma State. Absolutely destroyed the Oklahoma State offensive line. Oklahoma State scored 42 points in that game. They found a way while getting pressured on them, not able to run the football, not able to throw quick pass. They found a way to put up 42 points, and West Virginia couldn't manage to get across midfield. That's the part. It's not just that you look at this performance and say West Virginia's offensive line got eaten up, West Virginia had no answers. The same exact thing happened to Oklahoma State. It looked just as ugly for them, and they big played them and found answers and got 42 points. And this offense, with this quarterback and this set of receivers, can't get first downs? Just a stunning bad performance. I know I sound like a broken record, but 2 days later, I'm still amazed that that's what it looked like. Because what did I say going into this game? Well, Iowa State's defense pretty good, situational advantage for them. But you're going to tell me a true freshman quarterback is more ready to play against Tony Gibson's defense than Will Grier and this offense is ready to play against them? Couldn't have been more wrong.
Stunned.
Couldn't have been more wrong. It was the exact opposite. The true freshman quarterback looked poised. David Montgomery was a difference. And West Virginia's offense looked like it had never played offense before.
Here's the deal. Why did Brock Purdy look composed?
Because he didn't have to run it because Montgomery was.
That was the difference. Sure. Montgomery didn't even play against Oklahoma State, and West Virginia had no answer of getting him down at first contact. I mean, they had him at first contact a lot, could not bring him down because he is the nation's best getting yardage after first contact. He led the nation a year ago. He'll lead the nation, and he was a difference. He's ran around.
He was excellent. He's great. But if you had told me last Thursday when we did this podcast that Iowa State was going to score 30, I'd say, bring it on. Okay, go ahead. I mean, West Virginia had guys defensively falling like flies given their injury problems already. I don't think that was an awful defensive performance, although you couldn't guard Akeem Butler. You couldn't stop David Montgomery. But, okay, those are guys that make plays. 30, to me, you would have been right in the game if you're West Virginia's offense. To me, this was all offense.
At the beginning of this year, if you say a team scores 30 on us, we expect to win that game.
Agree with you.
So that's really – I don't think the defense was as big of a concern.
Defense played well enough to win under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
That's the scenario. Okay, so with that being said, I'll throw this one at you, Nate. Now, basketball seasons obviously are a lot longer, but you also have these huge high moments like West Virginia's had on a couple of occasions this season, and then you get down to these absolute low moments where it seems as though absolutely everything is broken, and how do you get it fixed? I mean, there's just this general feeling. So do you think, can this team regenerate itself?
Absolutely we can. We're still talking about a team that won their first 5 games pretty handily. This is not a bad football team, not a bad coaching staff, not bad players. That's the most frustrating part about being a West Virginia Mountaineer fan is we aren't exactly a big market team. So we have to go find players that want to win games by working harder than other people and playing harder than other people and not necessarily being more talented than people.
Mm-hmm.
So at times you're going to lose games that you aren't supposed to because it is hard to play an entire season playing as hard as he possibly can. And that's how both our football team and basketball team win games, and that's how we've been successful. And the thing that kind of makes it harder to bounce back from these losses like this is that our fans get down on our teams very quickly, and they start to pretty much publicly shame some of our players, some of our coaches, and that makes it even harder for players to bounce back. And to me, I don't understand how people are going to get down on Will Grier now after everything he's done for us. I mean, he's still playing good. He's still a first-round quarterback, and it's not like we get a lot of those. So, I mean, this is one of those situations where I think we need to pick him up rather than put him down because we still have a long season to go. Like he said, we can still win a Big 12 championship. I mean, there's still a lot to play for, so you got to turn this back around.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's never as bad as you think. It's never as good as you think. It's normally always in the middle. And now the optimism that has followed this team from preseason and through the first month of the season, the bubble's been popped. And we always kind of kid about that, right? We always talk about it's the time for ice cream, rainbows, and puppy dog tails when everything's good. But not until you get hit in the mouth and go down once do you know really what your team is. Now you're going to find out what the true character of this team is. If they don't look the same again for the rest of the season, then you'll know that it was flawed. If they can bounce back and say and learn from this and go, then you go like, guess what? This team had some in them, and they had one bad night out there, and they fixed it. That's going to be the characteristic of this season.
It is, and Baylor's not a gimme. I mean, I think, quite frankly, the way you played the other night, nothing's a gimme moving forward. There's a lot of winnable games out there, but there's also some stiff tests coming. I think that's the challenge for this group. This isn't just an effort-related problem that you just went into this and you weren't ready to play and you caught a buzzsaw and you caught a team that was riding really high and they just took your legs out and you weren't ready. There were some fundamental issues here, X and O-wise, that they've got to go back and look and figure out why. Because if I'm the rest of the Big 12, I start to look at that defensive game plan that Iowa State had and said, okay. And obviously there were pieces of that from these other games, right?
Sure.
Texas Tech made some adjustments at halftime and said, forget this, we're coming at him. We're putting pressure on the quarterback and pressing that offensive line and see what they can do. You saw Kansas make some adjustments, change their defensive line, start running some twists to take advantage of this offense. And then Iowa State put those two game plans together and dominated West Virginia. So there's some X and O things that have to get cleaned up, not just effort related.
All right. So here we go. It's into an off week. West Virginia has a chance to heal itself. They're going to need to heal themselves physically and mentally as well. And then for the coaching staff, this is what it is, man. This is exactly what you do now. And you say, okay, how do we coach this team up based upon our weaknesses? How do we get these things fixed, number one? And you do what you can do best and try to stay away from the things that you can't do. And you kind of go from there. But obviously, as you said, one loss so far in the season, but still you've got these games in front of you that although Saturday did not give you the indication that they could win, you absolutely could win. But it all has to start with Baylor. And then as we go in to the month of November, everyone knows, everyone's been talking about what that's going to be for this team. And it's right there for you still, despite what happened on Saturday. And let me just say this about Iowa State. If I'm an Iowa State fan right now, I'm giddy. Because in year 3, Matt Campbell has taken that program from where it was, and he's got that thing absolutely straight up and heading. He's got a quarterback. He's got a running back. He's got a defense. He's now won, 4 games over top 25 teams? 5 games. No, this was the 5th. 5 games over top 25 teams in the last season and a half.
And I think he's undefeated in October against top 25. Now, keep in mind, Iowa State before these last 2 seasons had lost 20 straight top 25 games. You're 100% right. What he's done with that culture of that program, and I told you this last week in talking to multiple people, some close to the program, some outside the program, just fans and donors, there wasn't even a little bit of hesitation on their part for West Virginia coming in with the 6th-ranked team with this offense. Complete confidence, complete trust in that program. And, guys, I can't stress enough, for that program to have that kind of belief is staggering in just the 2 years, 3 years now that he's been in that program. He's done a wonderful job with them.
Now, being an Iowa native, did you receive any harassing communication? You got a lot of harassing communication after the game was over?
Both on my personal devices and the station devices during the broadcast.
Family members wouldn't have done that, would they?
Well, yeah, at times. Got a couple of those.
Yeah.
Hadn't heard from people in a while. Suddenly came out of the woodwork. Asked me how the true freshman quarterback for Iowa State looked.
What a story there.
But if you're, you know what's interesting? If you're an Iowa State fan, West Virginians can relate to this. If you're an Iowa State fan, your giddiness is tempered by the fact you're scared to death Matt Campbell's leaving.
That's going to cost a lot of money.
It's going to cost a lot of money right now.
$7 million, right?
He's got a $7 million buyout if he chooses to leave to another program. He owes the school $7 million. I gave Jamie Pollard a lot of credit last week for going out and hiring Matt Campbell because Paul Rhodes was a popular coach that just wasn't winning at the end of his tenure. Got a great hire in Matt Campbell and then locked him up last year with one heck of a contract that's both ways. They owe him a lot of money, too, if they want to get rid of him, but they've got a giant buyout for Campbell's side if any school wants to come in and poach. They did a wonderful job.
All right, so there's the deal, West Virginia and Iowa State. Now the Mountaineers have a lot of work to do. What do you say before we go away? What do we talk a little hoops here? Coach Adrian has been attentively watching Mountaineer practices here as we get things going. It's going to be the Gold and Blue debut coming up on Friday. It'll be understand that this year it's going to be less chicanery and trickery like dunk contest and three-point shot. That stuff's going to just more just like we're scrimmaging, play ball. So I'm dying to know. Give me your early take on what you're seeing.
Patience is going to be needed with this team.
Oh, patience.
Patience.
Adrian calls for patience.
This is a young team. You have seven new guys, I believe. Something in that number.
Yeah.
5 to 7. You lost 2 seniors who have played over 200 games each, who were your heart and soul of your team. It's going to be similar last year. Last year we were all down on them after that Texas A&M game, but I told everybody you need to be patient with them. They're young. And coming into this year, they're even younger. And we're going to start off on a pretty hard non-conference schedule. We have Buffalo coming in, who has all of their players back, who's going to be good. That's our first game.
Had an NCAA win last year, right?
Yeah. We play Valparaiso. We play Tennessee. We play
Florida.
Pitt's not bad. You go to Myrtle Beach, and you play in that tournament against teams that aren't bad. So
you're saying the P word, huh?
I'm saying the team that we see at the beginning of the year will not be the team we see at the end of the year.
What do you think the biggest thing they're going to lack in the beginning will be?
It's going to be that leadership aspect, somebody that can take it and calm the game down when they need to and know what they need to do, know what coach wants them to do, and be able to run the offense in a patient manner instead of getting down 6 to 7 points. It's important to slow it down, get a couple easy buckets that way to get the ball moving again. If you're young, you panic, take bad shots. All of a sudden, that 7-point lead jumps to 14 real quick, and then you got a tough hole to dig out of.
Looks like Beatles emerging as the point.
Beatles, I believe, is going to be our best option at point guard.
Looks different handling the ball, doesn't he? He's good with the right hand. Got the right hand going a little bit there, huh?
Yeah. He had a little issue with his left hand.
Yeah, I see that.
He's been
it's kind of like a flying saucer on the top of his hand right now.
He's been working on his right hand for a couple weeks now, and it looks good. So I think he'll be able to handle the ball better than he has in the previous 2 years.
But he's still going to be asked to score out of the point guard position,
Absolutely.
right? Because you're going to need him to hit
and
shots.
That's the thing. Now he's going to handle the ball in situations where we need him to be a smart player and control our team, because I think he's got the experience to do that now. But now we also have Brandon Napper and Jordan McCabe to come in and play point guard whenever we need some points out of him in order to get him off the ball, and that'll create his shots that he has proven again and again that he can make.
Okay, you mentioned Napper and McCabe. Give me your early assessments.
They're both playing darn near similar right now, but everything's just a little fast. They got to learn to slow down, make the easier plays more than the home run plays. That's the thing coming out of high school. All you do is try to make the best play because you're more skilled than everyone else on the court. In college, everybody's skilled, so you got to learn how to make the easy plays that's going to get the offense into the best scoring position possible. And once they do that, they'll both be good. They can both shoot the ball. They can both handle the ball. They can both defend if they need to. So we'll see what happens.
Chase Harler, his final go-around looks like he's going to at least start at 2.
Yeah, I think he will. Is it his final? He's a junior.
No, it's not a junior. I'm sorry, he's a junior. I dated him out. I'm sorry, Chase.
Chase is shooting the ball better than he ever has. He went overseas for a couple of weeks over the summer, and I think that added a lot of confidence to his game, which is really all he needs. He's an extremely talented player. He just needs that confidence and the boost, and hopefully in those first few games he'll hit a few shots, and I think that will spring him into a pretty good season.
You also said you happened to be over there looking at practice.
Yeah.
And Chase Harler had an unbelievable highlight play Would you like to describe that to the listening
Yeah,
audience?
he went in on a break, and Derek Culver was there. Derek's
a big dude.
He's a big daddy. He's 6'9", 260, and he just dunked it over him.
What?
He dunked it over him.
Harler just went up and elevated and hammered it.
Hammered it.
He did.
Yeah, and Nate was there.
He's sneaky.
Nate was there at the scores
He's
table.
sneaky.
Nate was eating licorice. He was sitting there at the scores
Did you
table.
come out of your
watching.
seat?
No.
Was that a come out of your seat?
No.
You just were calm, played it cool.
I mean, it's practice. It happens all the time. Nothing to stand up about in practice.
Give us your take on Jermaine Haley, the transfer, Big Daddy.
He's probably our best. Well, I'm not going to say our best. He is one kid that has pro potential because he is a 6'7" actual guard who can handle the ball. And what he's going to do for us is we'll be able to play him, Issa, Lamont, Wes, and a center, Sags, and we'll be able to switch 1 through 5 like we did in 2010.
Because they're almost all the same
They're
size.
all 6'7"
I mean, you
to
have
6'9".
Konate at 6'3", so he'd be the shortest of that
He'd
group.
be
but
the
other than that,
shortest
they're-
on the court
yeah,
at that
yeah.
point in time.
Yeah. Now
But
you know what did it.
that'll be able to do that. And also, if we need a player 1-3-1, having a 6'7" point guard in the back of that helps with a lot of things.
That's a heck of a lineup.
Yeah.
Haley, Lamont,
Mhm.
Issa,
Sags.
Sags, Wes. That's
The
long.
only thing with that lineup is you have to find a second person who's going to be able to handle a little bit of pressure.
It's not Lamont.
No.
Not right now.
No.
Probably
Hopefully.
be Issa,
Can Issa
right?
do
It'd
that?
be Issa.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I mean, he'd be the guy you get the ball to relieve pressure off everybody else. Yeah.
He's looking good.
He is. Hopefully he
Consistently plays.
This is the year
I
he
feel
needs
like
to be. He needs to be
he
elite. I
needs
know
to
we say
be-
this every time. This team if he's elite, this team has a shot by the
Yes.
end of the year, right?
Yes.
Fair?
Yes.
Yes.
How many guys you think play?
How many do we have?
There's 15,
Every
14,
one of them.
15. That's what I thought, too.
Every one of them will play. Have a chance to play at least.
So I'm trying to
This is going to go back to my sophomore year.
That's what I was gonna ask.
When we had 12 people, and if you messed up, you're out, and it's going to be continuous rotation just like that year, and which is what you need with young guys because that's the quickest way to teach them how to play the game the way it needs to be played.
Because you got to figure out what you're doing if you want to stay on the court.
If you want to stay on the court, you need to make the right play and do what you need to do.
I'm trying to catch. So was your sophomore year the first year of Press Virginia?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is what I also would like if I could make a request. So that first year of Press Virginia, you remember how you guys on the sideline were constantly up, constantly cheering, and then Hugs would make substitutions. It was almost like a hockey line change. That's what it needs to be.
And that's what I think we're going to see. I think this team is actually very close too, and I think they will all. I don't think there's going to be any hatred or not hatred. What's the word I'm looking for?
Clicky discontent.
Yeah, there's not going to be any bad
mojo.
If you get pulled from the game, you're going to cheer for the next guy coming in. So
Yeah, that's good. McCabe pretty fancy.
he needs to be less fancy. Is the problem.
He sounds like a coach, right? Coach Adrian just came
Make
out there.
that easy pass. I already said that.
You ever talk to him about it?
I've talked to him about it. He'll get it.
Does he seem receptive?
Yes, he is, and he's very coachable, and he is in there watching more film than anyone ever has. He knows the offense better than probably anyone on the court. He's already directing people on where to go.
He's telling seniors where to go.
He's telling seniors where to go, and I mean that's what you need. That's what he's going to be for Hugs. He's like I did my junior and senior year. If there was a question, Hugs came to me and I could answer it for him. If somebody needed help on where to go outside of a timeout, I could tell them where they needed to go.
I remember you walking Sagaba out after timeout. So here, you'd point down there, just stand right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what Jordan's going to be able to do for him. He's an extremely intelligent kid, and
So
I think he'll grow into it.
His biggest thing is getting used to the speed and the
It's getting
size
used
of
to
the people
speed and
he's
the
going
size,
against.
yes.
Yeah.
Because he's not. I mean, he's not big. He's 5'10". He's going to have to learn how to use his size to get his shot off. I mean, it's just a huge learning curve that you don't realize coming out of high school because you think you've played against the best players in the country going through AAU and all that stuff, but you haven't played against all the best players in the country on one team.
Right.
You're playing against 5 of the best players in the country, not one on the team.
Yeah. Derek Culver, in regard to freak athlete, stands where in your opinion?
I mean, he's, like you said, 6'9", 6'10", 260 pounds. He's by far the fastest kid on the court. He can jump higher than everybody, and the problem is he just needs to slow down and figure out how to use that athleticism to his advantage, for his
advantage. Yeah, because right now that ball goes in there, he kind of gets it a little quick, kind of like
just goes fast,
kind of like a hand grenade that the pin's been pulled.
But that's also not unusual, right? There's very few new guys that come in that aren't
coming
fast.
in, it's a whole learning curve, and unless you're the best of the best, then you don't have those exact. skills yet.
All right. Well, it's nice to have you back here. I mean, it's time to go, man.
Yeah,
right?
I'm glad you finally invited me back.
Now, we do have to start planning with him, though, because he's just as likely to jet off to Europe or Turkey or somewhere.
No.
I'm not going anywhere.
No, he doesn't do that. He was the only guy I ever knew that said he was looking forward to coming home from Greece because he didn't like the food. The food wasn't good in Greece, and so he
I
said,
didn't say
Well,
it
he
wasn't
should've
good.
known
All I
that.
said
I
was
mean,
I needed a cheeseburger.
He knew that before he left. He still went. I see pictures of him all over the place. I never see him in Morgantown.
Yeah, I know.
No, I do travel.
He's a guy.
I get out.
All right, we're out. Thanks for being with us, everyone. Special thanks to Nate Adrian for filling in for Hoppy. Hoppy will be back later on this week. We'll be back on Thursday, getting you set for football weekend, along with the Senator Brad Howe. This has been Three Guys Before the Game. Have yourself a great day. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe and have it put into your podcast folder as soon as we publish. We're out. See you.